Well, Tasha Christensen, welcome back to the Rocky Mountain Writer Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Yeah, congratulations, Writer of the Year finalist, one of three. How awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very excited about it. I remember just joining RMFW and looking at the people being nominated for that and saying, wow, they're so official and cool and they've written so many books. So it's really cool to be in that company.
And you're official and you're cool. So there you
Oh,
go.
thank you.
How did you find out? What was your reaction?
I mean, it was an email from Andre Gonzalez and I believe. And yeah, I was just kind of sitting there and I saw the subject line and I was like, oh, I forgot that that was even, an option because I submitted myself actually, but I was like, I'll throw it out there, see what happens. I know a lot of times people get nominated by other people, but I just figured I'd throw it out there and forgot about it. So I was very excited, to see that at least I'd gotten past that first level.
Yeah. Well, that's actually kind of a good point. Why not advocate for yourself?
Sure. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed submitting, other people that I feel like are doing a good job and I could have, waited to see if someone nominated me, but I don't know. I have learned in the writing industry that a lot of times you have to kind of be really overconfident sometimes, and then sometimes good stuff comes from it and sometimes nothing does, but it doesn't hurt to try.
Yeah. That's really a truism, I believe. I endorse that 100%. What does it mean to you to be a finalist? How does it a nice feeling of confidence?
Yeah, yeah, especially because I feel like I don't necessarily write awards types of fiction. Um, I write romantic comedies, I very specifically write things that I want to be light and short and quick reads that are really fun. And that's the main goal. So if I accomplish that and readers tell me, oh, this is really fun and cute and I really liked it, that's the main goal. And so I wasn't writing it with any intentions to try to like get awards from it. I have other types of writing I like to do where I might be trying that a little more, right? So it's just like a pleasant surprise if I do get anything. So, I have my standards pretty low in regards to that. So if anything ever does happen, um, I get really excited about it. Like, for example, another one, my first book, As You Were, is the first in a series. It came out in 2021, I believe. Um, and that was another one where I submitted it for a couple awards, forgot about it. And then I think maybe 2 years later, I had found out that I had gotten chosen as a finalist for the Indie Author Project, which is kind of coordinated by librarians and that kind of thing. So it was library focused and ended up winning one of those prizes. And it's just really exciting because I'm not writing this to be a prize winner. It's not like the fanciest, most literary writing, but it's just something that I want people to read and enjoy. And so if there's any awards that come from that, it's just an added bonus.
Yeah, very good. Well, we've got a few things to touch on today, including the second book in that series. You mentioned the second, Marking Time, came out in December, I think, just a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also want to talk about the short story that's going to be in the new RMFW anthology coming out in September.
Mm.
And then we want to talk a little bit about some of your choices you're making around publishing, doing both indie and sort of the standard traditional querying agents kind of approach. And then also a little teaching you've got going on. Let's start with the second book though, with Marking Time that came out in December. For those who don't know, set up the series, where it's set and what it's about, and then tell us a little bit about Marking Time.
Sure. So it's from the Itaska High series, and each book follows a different main character. I say it follows the romantic shenanigans of a Minnesota high school marching band. So each year is a different school year and follows someone different, and some of the first love kind of experiences that they're having, as well as friendships and competitions and music and school and parents. There's lots of family stuff. So that's the series, Itasca High, and Marking Time is came out in December. It's got a, oh, I should grab it. It's got my, I guess for the podcast you can't see, but it's got a bright pink cover. I love the bright colors for this stuff. And it's about a girl named Kendall who has to move because her parents got divorced, and meets a girl who is a drummer in this high school marching band that we follow. And Kendall doesn't want to make friends. She doesn't want to have relationships, but of course, something does end up happening. So that's the most recent one. It's been fun having it out there.
And for those who don't know the double meaning marking time.
Yes, so all my titles I like to have some kind of marching band type term. So marking time would be if you're just you're standing in place, but you're kind of marching in place. And then the double meaning would kind of be, this is a girl who is just kind of biding her time. It's her senior year. She's moving to a new school. She's like, I'm just going to get through the school year, and then my whole life can begin. And then just kind of the process of how she learns to be in the moment and enjoy the moment. And even if she's only going to be there for a year and has to say goodbye to her friends afterwards, it doesn't mean that she can't have a really good time and meet people and love people.
Yeah. Now, are the characters in both books, are they contemporary to each other, or is it that more years have passed and this is a different band?
It's the same, yeah. So it's the same high school, Itasca High School, and then yeah, it's each school year. So basically, and as you were, the main character Hannah was a senior in high school, and then in this book, Hannah has graduated, and the main character is Kendall, who's a year younger than her.
Yeah. What changed between writing book one and book two for you? Was it easier? Had you already set up your world so it was a little easier to go back into that kind of thing?
Yeah, I would say that the writing itself was easier. It was, I had set up the book. I had set up, a lot of the main characters do come back, the teachers and some of the band characters that are still in high school. So that was nice to have that all set up when I went to draft marking time. And I always write these books during NaNoWriMo. So the first draft is always a very quick process, about a month. That's National Novel Writing Month for those not familiar. So you try to write a whole book in a month. And the idea is you write 50,000 words. And these books usually end up a little longer than that, but it's a first draft that's pretty close to what I get down. And so just I write that out. And then the editing process for this one ended up being harder, which is kind of interesting to me because the writing felt so smooth, the drafting felt so smooth. And then it took me a long time to revise and edit it and really get it to where I wanted to. And I don't know exactly why that was, but I kind of learned to roll with the punches. I think sometimes it's just other things that are going on in your personal life and other things you're busy with that affect that as well. So I tried not to beat myself up a little, too much about it.
Yeah. Did you write another draft during the last NaNoWriMo at the end of 2023?
I did not, because
Yeah.
it was in the process of, putting out this book, because it came out beginning of December. I was like, I'm going to stress myself out if I'm trying to draft an entire book and do all the production and marketing of this book. So I didn't. I don't often skip, but I had to this past year.
Yeah. Well, that's a good little segue to your decision to self-publish these first two in this series. Talk a little bit about that, just what went into this decision-making process, but also you've got some other projects that are you're at least planning to take out in a more traditional sense and go after a literary agent and a traditional publisher, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I kind of have two loves when it comes to writing. I really like science fiction and I really like romance. And when I started out this whole journey, I was trying to get my science fiction traditionally published. I did actually eventually get an agent and was with her for a while. It was the early pandemic, and we went on sub with one of my YA science fiction book. And I ended up after a while parting ways with her. But during the process, when I actually was still agented, I decided that on the side, I wanted to write and self-publish, specifically self-publish these rom-coms. It was another love of mine to write romance, and I wanted to do that. And I decided that this would be a good experiment in, what would happen if I had all the control, if I could control the timeline, because traditional publishing is very slow and lots of waiting. And I could pick the covers and I could make all the decisions and market it the way that I wanted to and kind of experiment with that. So even though I had an agent for other things and she probably would have represented this stuff, I decided I want to do it my own way and not have to only answer to the readers, basically, not have to answer to agents or publishing houses for these books. And so yeah, it's been really interesting kind of balancing those two sides of me. I still do want to do traditional with the sci-fi. I have, different pen names for the two. But this is a nice way for me to have control of the process for a couple of my books and do things the way that I want to do them, which is kind of fun.
For those who might be peering into the indie published approach and taking their first little steps into that world, any bits of advice for those folks who are just starting to weigh how much work it might be? And yeah, they look at all the pros, they get to control everything, but also kind of daunted by some of the detail-oriented work you have to do.
Yes. Yeah, it is daunting. I would say two things, kind of one pro and one con. If you are deciding between indie and traditional, it's important to know that, especially nowadays, some of the things that traditional publishing houses used to do for most of their authors aren't necessarily being done anymore. So a lot of my traditionally published friends are still doing pretty much all their marketing and events booking and graphic design, a lot of that, if not all of it. And sometimes things are coming out of their own pocket. And so it's not a done deal that you don't have to do any of that stuff if you get a traditional publishing deal. So if that's something you hate, it's kind of a hard pill to swallow. But if you want to be a writer in today's world, that you're probably going to have to end up doing that kind of thing either way. That's one of the things. The other thing about indie is that no path fits everybody. It's really good to get advice from people who have been successful. That's essential, I would say. But in the end, you have to figure out what your strengths are and what you might need to, for example, hire somebody to do. There are certain things that you will need to pay out of pocket and hire someone to do. You can't be necessarily your own editor. You probably shouldn't design your own cover. I should
Yeah,
not, for sure. I do not have that
yeah,
kind of artistic talent. And so like put that effort into what are you really good at and what should you spend your time at, and then let other people who are better at the other things do them for you.
yeah. That's great. And in terms of not every path is right for everybody, it's interesting to me that you are keeping the traditional door open. There's no reason you can't do both.
Right. And more, I
Yeah.
think it's becoming more common.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
like I said, when you look to people who are being successful, I see more and more often really reputable writers who are either they start out traditional and they find success and then they take that fan base and start self-publishing certain things. I bring up Brandon Sanderson as an example. That's
Sure.
basically what he does and has like the two most funded Kickstarters of all time, all sorts of success there, trying new things. And then I also see people who start out self-publishing. Um, I think I think Rebecca Yaros, I think she's from Colorado. And I believe that
Colorado Springs.
fourth,
Yeah.
yeah, I believe her book Fourth Wing was maybe initially self-published. I'm sorry if I'm telling anybody lies, but basically there are lots
Yeah.
of successful people who initially start
Sure.
out as indie authors and then find success also in the traditional world, and it's becoming more and more common. So it's cool to see people take control of their careers and be really deliberate with their careers instead of just going with the flow with whatever anyone else tells them they should do.
Yeah. I think Andy Weir is another one. And speaking of
Yes.
sci-fi, yeah. So I wasn't quite clear. Do you have a finished science fiction novel that you are querying now?
Yes. So I have one that just barely started going out. I had a chance to send just a full straight to an agent from previous, conversations. And so I decided to take this one, just send it to that one agent first, kind of just say, like, I'm not really in a hurry. I've been in this long enough that I know that traditional publishing is a really slow timeline. I've got a lot of other things going on in my life right now. I'm going back to school soon, so I have all these other things going on. I have two kids. And so I said, like, no rush. I'm just going to send it to this one agent, see what their reaction is. If they want to sign me, that'd be great. If they have feedback, that's also cool. But even if they don't, that'll kind of give me a way to start dipping my toe back into the querying world because I haven't done that since I left my agent. And that was maybe 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half. I
Hmm.
can't remember. So I'm taking it slow, just kind of feeling things out. I'm doing lots of research and I'm not going to rush it this time. So
Yeah. Let's maybe there's an agent listening. Do you care to give the pitch for that science fiction? novel?
Sure. Oh, yeah. If there happens to be an agent listening, this book is I call it a space opera with a romantasy twist. So I comp it to things like the show Firefly, as well as, let's see, what else do I comp it to? Yeah, Star Wars, stuff like that, where it's space opera, but there's lots of romance there in this book. It's for adults. And it is called Galaxy of Blood and Fate. And it's about a guy who's a scavenger in space and comes upon this broken down ship and realizes it's this missing royal ship. And there's supposed to be this princess who's on the loose and people are trying to catch for a reward, and realizes, oh, this is his chance to make some money and accomplish some of his goals. And he goes in there and he finds this woman and basically, takes her captive and says, like, I'm going to get this reward, and thinks that he has the actual princess, but she's actually pretending to be the princess for her own reasons. So that's the pitch. If anyone likes it, hit me up.
I like it. I like it. Very good. Excellent. Well, let's talk a little bit about that short story that you are having published in the new Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers Anthology. Fingers crossed, no breaks. I think that's the right title for the
Oh, yeah.
anthology.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's right. Oops, I should know
yeah,
it
yeah.
offhand.
I should know it off the top of my head too. Um, what did you write a story when you saw the call go out?
Yes, this time I did write something to the theme. I really liked the prompt. It was to do with, Colorado's changing climate.
Yeah,
And as a sci-fi writer, climate change is often figures into stories, but I hadn't written a story that focused on it. So this was a good chance for me to kind of brainstorm and figure out what tale I wanted to tell in regards to that. And I'm really proud of it. I think it's probably the best short story I've written. I don't know. I have not, like, some people in RMFW are just so prolific with short stories and so talented and are getting into all sorts of anthologies. Whereas I feel I focus mostly on novels. Every so often, when a call for entries or something else piques my interest, I'll write a short story. So I'm really proud of it.
yeah. Tell us the title and what's the concept.
It's called Sticka. And the concept is a little unique. It's based on the mommy blogs that were really big, maybe in the 2010s, where women would, they'd blog and they'd post pictures of their kids and they'd write about their daily lives. It was a really interesting microcosm of the world. I wasn't a mom at that time, but I was kind of, almost in that world and would read some of these sometimes. And it was so interesting to me, the way these women shared their lives and the way their audience interacted and kind of felt possessive of their families in a way. This is kind of the first influencers, if you think about it, because now there's lots of family influencers on TikTok and Instagram. It's such an interesting world. And I was like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity for a short story, right? You just do the blog posts. And so Sticka is laid out in blog posts following this woman who's a popular mommy blogger. It starts out just kind of, the regular stuff that she types about her family, and just dropping hints about a drought. And so in Colorado, she basically lives, you can, if those who are on video, you can see in the background, I'm in this house in the woods of Evergreen, right? Evergreen, Colorado. And she basically lives this kind of area. And there's a drought that's going on. And so she keeps dropping these hints that things are getting more serious and more drastic. And you kind of follow this family through these blog posts. You only get little snippets of what's going on with them. And as they start to face fear and tragedy and danger, and how this woman kind of copes with it and leads her family through it.
And what's the title mean? What does that?
It's Sticka, and it is basically her nickname. My research basically just involved reading a lot of mommy blogs, and I noticed that a lot of these women had nicknames for, their husband was called a certain thing that wasn't his real name, or the
Yeah,
woman would be called something else. And so, yeah, so it was
yeah.
her name's Jessica, but her nickname is Sticka. So that's what the blog is named, and that's what the
Gotcha.
story is called.
Gotcha. Did the editors, Paul and Linda, put you through some work to get it up to their standards?
Yeah, it was a great experience editing with them. They were really easy to work with and very reasonable about, oh, if you don't like this edit, let's talk about it. We didn't end up having too many edits that we had to do, fortunately, and pretty much everything they noted that they wanted changed or clarified or, fixed up a sentence, I pretty much completely agreed. And so it was a
Yeah.
pretty easy process, fortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. They're very thoughtful. Yeah. That's
Mhm.
great. Well, congratulations there as well. Very cool.
Thanks. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Shout out to that anthology. I feel bad. I should make sure I have the right name, but that's coming out in September. And I think everyone should keep an eye out for it because I know a couple other people who have stories in it. It should be, or do you have one in there this year? Yeah,
Yep.
so Mark has a story in it. Lots of other cool RMFW people. I think it'll be really interesting.
Yeah. I do too. I'm really eager to read I've chatted with a couple of the other authors on the podcast too. I'm eager to read their stories and see the whole collection. It sounds terrific.
Yeah.
So you're having a good year. You got a book out in December, a short story coming out. You've got some a novel out, Querying with Agents, and you're also doing some teaching. For those who might be able to hear this before the weekend of April 20th or so, I know you're involved with a Teen Lit conference, but tell us a little bit about what are some of the themes or topics you like to teach about and audiences you're trying to reach, and what's in it for you to get out there and teach?
Teaching has always a little bit been the end goal for me, as well as obviously writing books and getting them out there. It's one of the things that I've always enjoyed, growing up, and the little chances I got to do it, at my church growing up, or kind of being a volleyball coach for middle schoolers. That's an aspect of that. And so I always wanted to end up teaching some writing. And I feel like, yeah, the past year or so, I've really gotten those opportunities, and that's been really satisfying because writing books and trying to get people to read them could be kind of stressful, and you feel like you're just always trying to get attention and eyes on it. But teaching was a way to just go somewhere for go to a conference, go to a school class, and get that creative satisfaction, but also it's more concrete. So yeah, I've been teaching at writing conferences, but also going to high schools and teaching just little 1 hour workshops to the high schoolers about writing, and various other maybe online things. And the one coming up, if anyone does hear this in time, on April 20th, there's the Colorado Teen Lit Conference, and they hold that at a local high school here in the Denver area. And it's so fun because there's readers, there's writers, there's librarians and educators. I highly suggest anybody who's thinking about writing a teen book or currently has teen books out to get involved with them, because they're a great group of people. And yeah, it's been very fulfilling, especially as a writer who is maybe more extroverted. uh,
Mhm.
I do like talking to people. Just sitting and writing on my keyboard is really fulfilling in certain ways, but I do need to get out there and talk to people, and teaching these workshops has been a really great way for me to do that.
Yeah. What are you teaching this weekend, should somebody hear this in time?
It's actually about indie publishing. It's basically just called What is Indie Publishing? Because I feel like
Yeah.
sometimes people aren't quite sure what they're getting into or what the options are. And it's a way for me to teach potential writers, but also the librarians and teachers that are there who may want to fill their school libraries with some local authors, or just want to branch out and find more books that they think their kids would like. And so it's a way to introduce them to, how do you find these indie authors? Where do you find, quality indie books? Because that's always an issue, is sorting through all the books out there. And hopefully that's a good way to, draw attention to all the quality indie authors out there.
Yep. I have a sneaking hunch that you might have put in to teach some workshops at Colorado Gold as well.
I did. And then I got into grad school, and I'm going to be moving, and I can't teach there now.
Oh my gosh, where are you moving to? What's going
We are
on?
moving to London for a year.
Wow. So you won't
It's,
be a color if you win
I
color if you win
won't.
writer of the year, you won't be there.
Well, who would do that, Mark?
Yeah, I don't
You
know.
had a good excuse, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
Uh,
I did submit, and then I had to basically email them once I found out that I got into this London school, and say, I really want to teach, and I love Colorado Gold, but I'm going to be out of the country, and I don't know if I can
wow.
swing flying out a week after classes start.
Yeah. What university or college, and then what degree are you pursuing?
I'm going to University College London for digital anthropology.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a
Wow.
I it's a kind of a new field of study, but basically it's anthropology, so you're studying cultures and people, but it's in regards to the internet and technology and how that affects the way people interact. So I'm really excited.
Wow. And the whole family is going with?
Yeah, yeah, I have two kids and I have a husband and I'm schlepping them all out there and it's kind of a fun chance to try the living abroad thing. I have friends and some family members who have done that with their families before, and I've always been a little jealous. So we're going to see how it goes. I might have to put some of the writing projects on the back burner for the year, which will be really tough because I love it. But it's only a year-long program to get a master's, unlike
Sure.
most US universities. So that was one of the appeals of this place is, you just go out, it's a year, and then you have your degree, and then you come back here, hopefully.
Wow. Is it right in London?
Yeah, it's like right downtown. It's like I could walk to Buckingham Palace from it.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and have you been to London? Have you been over there before?
Nope. We're going in. Yeah, we're diving right in. It's a little bit risky, but we're trying it out. We'll see how it goes.
So are you already in the process of looking for places to stay, things like that?
Yep. Yeah. London actually has surprisingly good, student housing options, not just for my university, but for all the universities in the area. So they have ones that are for international families of graduate students, so it's specific to our
Ah,
needs because I don't have family out there, so it'll be a little lonely. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to find a community over there and maybe get involved in the writing community there and make more connections so that we're not, just isolated the whole time we're out there.
oh, I'm sure you'll manage that. No, no problem. Wow. Well,
I hope.
that's a big headline. That's a big headline. Well, I was at least was right that you had submitted some conference workshop proposals.
Yes, I
Yeah.
I was sad to retract that because Colorado Gold is one of the highlights of my year. So
Yeah. Very good. Wow. Well, this has been quite the rundown. Tasha, thank you so much. As we always like to do, we like to wrap up with recommending a book or a writer just to pay it forward a little bit. So now's your
yes,
chance.
I've been thinking about this. A book that I am in the middle of reading. I started reading it a while ago and then lost it in my friend's truck for a while. But I Molly McGee has been at Colorado Gold a couple times, I think now. She was an editor and is now an author. And I've been reading Jonathan Abernathy, You Are Kind, which is her literary science fiction novel that just came out a little bit ago. It's very interesting. So if that sounds appealing to anybody, I'd highly recommend checking out because it scratches such an itch for me of this literary kind of mind-bending sci-fi that really talks to current issues in the world and societal issues, and she does a really great job. So highly recommend.
Yeah. Great. And I'll point people to the podcast chat with her last summer prior to her keynote speech at Colorado Gold last year. That was a fantastic chat. And you can learn more about the book on that podcast as well. Probably August-ish, maybe July. I'm not sure, but last year
Yeah, yeah, I
she was
remember that was a good interview.
she was dynamite. Yeah. Well, Tasha, thank you again. Wow, good luck with everything, and especially with the big move. And it'll be a great
Yeah,
experience, I'm sure. But thanks for your time on the podcast today.
yeah, thanks for reaching out, Marco. It was great to catch up.